Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Brew Review Crew. Today we are with Maumee Bay's Brewmaster John Koester here at Maumee Bay's tasting room. Glub, 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 glub. So I think what we want to start with, John, is why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, maybe how you got started into brewing and how you found yourself here.
Well, as like most homebrewers, that's 90+% of people get into homebrewing, and that's how they eventually get into professional brewing. I was homebrewing for almost 5 years before I started working here. I was in beer and wine sales at Bailey's Beverage Center for a few years, and I just got geeked out on homebrewing. I just read tons of books and got into advanced all-grain homebrewing, and I was actually Bailey's Beverage Center ended up closing, so I was looking for a position at a brewery, and I was talking to the guys at New Holland Brewing Company.
Okay, yeah.
But the position was actually for sales as opposed to brewing. When they called me back, the same day I saw an ad in the Blade, of all places, for assistant brewer needed at Maumee Bay. So I jumped on it, and there was a lot of homebrewers trying to get the position. And I was pretty fortunate because I didn't have as much experience as some of the guys, but I brewed with Phil a couple times before I got the job, and it worked out.
So right now, why don't you tell everyone at Maumee Bay your main beers are which ones? The ones that you have like your year-round lineup.
Year-round, we've got the Buckeye beer. That's our flagship beer. It's an American lager, clean, crisp, easy to drink. Kind of like a lawnmower type beer. Mm-hmm. We've got the India Pale Ale. That's our second best seller. It's got about 80 IBUs and it's pretty well balanced. Glass City Pale, that's been a staple here for a long time. We tweaked the recipe on that about like a year and a half ago, and people are digging the change. Yeah. So I think we're going to see that selling up, especially like in the Columbus, Cleveland area, stuff like that, a lot more. Dry Irish Stout we were doing as a year-round, but we decided to switch that up. I'm going to be doing like a Kiln Coffee Imperial Stout to change that up one. Outside of that, we don't really have a lot of. We're trying to rotate as many other ones as we can right now.
We do a lot of beer trading. Everyone I trade with, I give them a Total Eclipse because that's just a great beer. I mean, can you tell us a little bit about that one? Because it is one of your more famous brews.
Yeah, the Eclipse is definitely our highest rated beer on Beer Advocate. It's got a 95 right now. It's one of Clint's recipes. He homebrewed that before he was actually brewing here.
Really?
He was volunteering here, and we were about to go to OG Brewing Company and Arbor Brewing Company, and he sampled it to like my family and like his friends and stuff, and everybody was floored. It was like, oh my God. And then he actually got employed here a few months later, and I was like, why don't we brew that on a large scale? Right. And he was super happy for good reason, and it was instantly a success. It's basically like an imperial like milk stout. So it's brewed with lactose. It's also got some espresso coffee in it from Flying Rhino, which is a local roaster. And it's also got oats, so you've got your whole breakfast, Nice. You got a meal in a glass.
So the other big one that's on Beer Advocate is the Amarillo Brillo.
Yep.
Talk about that a little bit.
The Amarillo Brillo is one of my recipes. I came up with that because I was thinking about for like a couple of years about brewing a great double IPA here, because they didn't brew a double IPA or a barley wine before I even started here, and I'm like, well, we're clearly missing something, So I just thought about that recipe for a while, and Simcoe is my favorite variety of hop, super piney, and Amarillo is a good contrast because it's kind of peachy, citrusy and stuff. So I don't know, I just figured keep the body a little bit on the lower side, but still have enough sweetness to balance it out, and I think the hops just work,
How's it feel to see one of your recipes be considered, I think, world class on Beer Advocate?
I don't know.
Do you take does that on Beer Advocate? I mean, do you really was that a big day for you to see that, or was it just
No, I think for both me and Clint, when we started releasing those beers in 4-packs and we started reading these reviews, we were like, we knew the beers were good, but that was just the confirmation. That was like, oh, hell yeah.
Is there a particular beer that you've made before that you haven't made since that you want to bring back?
Well, as I was speaking of the Simcoe, when Clint was volunteering, so this was like 5 years ago, we brewed a beer which was basically like our Fallen Timbers Red, but we boosted the body and alcohol up to 7.5% alcohol from like around the 5.2 range, and I hopped it with 100% Simcoe, and then I dry hopped it with Simcoe.
Nice.
And I loved it. I couldn't stop drinking it. And I knew it was a good sign when all these homebrewers were coming out of the woodwork with their corny kegs to get fills of it.
Oh, wow.
So that's definitely one that I'd like to bring back. Simcoe is kind of hard to get, so that's why I haven't been doing it. But
talk to us about your barrel program. What have you done in them so far, and what are you going to do with them?
Well, those are like the mini distillery type barrels. They got the honeycomb inside, so it's like those pick up, like the beer picks up the flavor of the wood and everything really quickly. So we only had the breakfast stout soaking in those for 3 months before we released it, as opposed to if we had the full size like 53 gallon barrels, it'd be closer to like a year to get that flavor. But at the same time, those are really expensive barrels, and we can't afford to just buy tons of those. So we are going to start increasing to probably the 53 standard size, and just start doing like, hopefully we'll do the breakfast stout again. That would be next. Maybe the barley wine, and just go from there and start getting. So we're probably doing batches and filling barrels like every 4 months.
Very cool. What's the big plan for Maumee Bay? Where do you guys want to take this, especially now that we've got Black Koester moving into town? Where is your guys' vision at for the future?
Right now, we're at this good changing point where we've got a lot of, just a lot of different people putting forth their best effort, best ideas, and we're actually putting them all into action within like just the last, year or so. And I think we're going to stick with this pattern, but we want to keep exploring, trying to get into newer markets with distribution. And hopefully at some point, I'd like to start a little smaller project and start doing sour ales, because me and Clint are huge fans of sours. So
very cool.
As far as the Oliver House, the building, this place is, we can't really do much. Across the street in the production facility, it's not good, but it's good for us. The building next to it, which is a historic building, the back of it actually started crumbling, and they can't save it the way it is. So what we're going to do is we're going to plan on like paying for the demolition and expanding onto that.
Cool. Very cool.
Yeah. So that's our plans. That way we can jam a lot more fermentation space in there.
What's your production size right now? How many barrels are you putting out?
Last year we were right around the 2,000 mark. This year, across the street is going like crazy. Since we're picking up more distributors, we've got to hit, I'd say, close to 3,000 barrels this year.
Wow. Is it just you and Clint brewing over there?
Well, Clint's got an assistant, but he mainly does cellar work. Clint's just busy over there, and I'm brewing over here. So we've got.
You guys, I don't see how you guys can even sleep or go home. I feel like you guys must be brewing all the time.
No, but we'd like to do that.
So is there a bottleneck right now, just fermentation space? Is that the only thing limiting you from doing that, or what?
We're right at about that point. And it's going to be very quickly changing that. We're going to have to get more fermenters and everything in there.
So the other thing I wanted to bring up is cans. I know you're doing Buckeye in cans. Is there any plan to do any of your other lineup in cans? Because we're big movement right now.
The next one we're going to be doing is the Broken Back Kolsch. We already have the mock-up for that. The order might be in for the cans already.
Nice.
And but as far as it's the only one right now, but I think that we'd probably see the IPA going into cans after that.
And right now, what cities? You're still only in Ohio? Or are you into Michigan yet?
No. We were, for a short period of time, we were in Michigan, a little bit of Kentucky and Indiana, but we broke ties with that distributor. But we're working on getting throughout Ohio right now. And from there we'll see.
Hey guys, we are back here at Maumee Bay, and we are sitting with Clint McLaughlin, who is the head production brewer here at Maumee Bay. Why don't you tell us a little bit about how you got into beer, craft beer, brewing, all of that, and how you found yourself here?
Well, I guess in high school, being the underage drinker, I don't know if I should really talk about this. I got around my senior year and started. I was already an electrician doing this pre-apprentice program, so I had a little more money. So I started like delving into things that didn't cost $6 for 6 tall boys and stuff like that, and chanced into basically a friend from out west introduced me to Anchor Steam, Anchor Porter, Sammy Smith Oatmeal Stout, and Sierra Nevada Pale Ale, which is kind of just like common denominators, really more as far as like old school beers. And yeah, it was like a really mind-blowing experience. Sat down, drank all these beers, and Sierra Nevada really is the one that caught me, and that's kind of like the one I latched onto. And when as my flavors started to progress, and I started trying all these other beers, by now I'm like about 19, 20. I started having some friends one friend was a winemaker, and another friend had moved up north into the Warren, Michigan area, and he was making beer. So I'd go hang out with these guys, and they'd give me, the wine. The wine was awesome. They'd give me his beer. Oh, your beer tastes like Sierra Nevada. And then, you get a little more in conversation, and then I figured out that this guy's making Sierra Nevada-esque beer for, 2 cases for $20. So I'm like, oh my God, my mind's blown. How can you make that much beer for that little money? And it's like, you just go to the store, you buy the stuff, and then chance happens, like 6 months later, that same guy that was brewing the beer in Warren stopped brewing beer, gave me all his hand-me-down equipment. And
that's awesome.
And then the guy that was local, was doing the wine, he lived right over in the south end here, so right around the corner from Chicken Myers. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the local lawn feed homebrew store. But so yeah, he introduced me to that store. I did my first batch of beer when I was about 20, and it was like I got all grain, and I didn't know anything about all grain. I didn't know anything about anything. So I got like this 14 pounds of uncracked grain. I didn't get it cracked. So then I go home and I got my all my equipment and steeped my uncracked grain, basically mashed uncracked grain. Didn't have any idea what the hell I was doing. Carried it all the way through. Didn't end up with infected beer, but I ended up with something that was carbonated. It tasted kind of like husky tea. Like very tannic, very bitter. It was just all around weird. And then, found out that the easy way was to do extracts. I did extracts for a couple months, then realized when I wanted to progress into the grain, actually read it, realized, holy stuff, that the first batch of beer I made, I didn't get the grain cracked. And I was like, oh, epiphany, like, holy shit, like, you're a dummy. But anyway, moving on past that, I just started brewing, like, I got really fanatical about it because I was making all these different beers, and every time I make a new beer, and including all my friends, who doesn't like free beer though, they're always going to tell you it's good. But basically, brewing all these different batches of beer, latched onto the all grain. I don't do well with like keeping things at a hobby level. I'm pretty obsessive about being a knowledgeable person in any given area that I take interest in. So, obsession turned into fanatical, and then I guess I kind of crossed paths with John. John used to be the clerk at it's now a closed bottle store, wine store. Bailey's Beverage Center is on Monroe Street. It's actually right around the corner from where I live now. So, friends of friends, I knew John through my sister and his sister-in-law, and we kind of knew who each other were. And I was going in there and buying beers all the time, and he could tell I was a nut because I was going in there and spending like $150 every time I go in there.
Sounds familiar.
So, but I'm talking like several days in a week though that I'm doing this. And then I'd go meet with my other buddy Mark, who is the guy who helped me make the breakfast stout that we brew, me and another homebrew buddy. We used to go in there and like clean them out, between the two of us. And we eventually, just by talking there at the counter, realized that we had some common interests, and one of them was brewing beer, outside of drinking beer, obviously. Right. So then we were just like, hey, let's get together and make a beer sometime, because we were passing our homebrews back together. I really liked what he was making. He seemed to like what I was making. and we just teamed up one day and you know, brewed a batch of beer. It was a rye. I guess the beer store closed. I kind of lost touch with them, and then like a year later, I'm at the Glass City Beer Fest, and I'm like, you know what happens at the Glass City Beer Fest, you know, really annihilated drunk. And I see John, and I'm like, I recognize this guy. And he has a Maumee Bay shirt on. I run up to him, I'm like, hey, what's up, dude? What happened to you? And he's like, oh, I'm the brewmaster at Maumee Bay. And I'm like, what? Like, it was, it was mind-boggling. So then I was immediately like, dude, you got to let me come in and make a batch of beer with you, you know? And so then, I was, like I said, I was in college then, and started coming in and volunteering. Had my child, dropped out of college, and took a part-time position here. And I guess about 3 years into it, so about 2 years ago, I've been here for about 5 years. In August, I'll have been here for 5 years. We kind of split duties between the production facility. At that time, there really wasn't a whole lot going on over there. You know what I mean? You know, the more important stuff, the most of the brewing was still being done over here then. Since then, the last 2 years have blown up, especially in the last 6 to 9 months. We'll be at capacity. We are at capacity right now, and we've picked up 6 new distributors in the last few months. Things are just on the up and up, and it's outside of having a good rapport, I guess, with other brewers and just on the beer rating websites. It's nice that we're actually making some product and getting out the door. It's pretty cool, man. Pretty stoked on that. So
yeah, we were talking to John about the Beer Advocate ratings. How was it when you saw the rating for the Total Eclipse?
Well, obviously that's a really good feeling. It's pretty cool to know that. I already know that. It's not like I'm not trying to like.
Right.
But just being a consumer of beer, I don't give a crap that I made it. I think it's a really rad beer. You know what I mean? So when someone else is like, "Oh, it's a really awesome beer," it's like, well, yeah, I know that. But it's still nice to have. It's still nice to have somebody that appreciates it as well.
Right.
So yeah, it's really awesome, honestly. So yeah,
very cool. Hey guys, like that review? Click on the video for our previous episode.
You want to check out your favorite beer by the style? Click on the logo in the top left corner.
Don't forget to like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and subscribe to us on YouTube. Cheers.